Hey there, welcome back to the Crossing King Garage. I'm Randy.
I'm Kristen.
And
this is Katy.
Hi guys.
She is my older sister and his oldest daughter.
And part of the kin in Crossing Kin.
Absolutely. Part of the reason Katy is here with us today is because we are doing something about books.
That's right. After the first of the year, we saw very many of our friends post on Facebook that they were going to try this year as a resolution to read through at least one book a month, or as many books as they possibly could. That inspired us. We agree, absolutely love to read, and our resident book reader is here to aid us in at least 12 different options for you as you go throughout the year if you made that resolution.
All right. So, Katy, you kick us off. What is the first book you recommend?
First book I would recommend, and I just finished reading this, is Lord of the Rings. This book is about a group of 9 companions who have gone out as a quest to destroy an evil ring that the Lord Sauron made in earlier times past.
No lie, this is a very hard read, especially if you're not into fantasy. If you love fantasy, we highly, highly recommend that you go and read Lord of the Rings. It's an incredible classic, has spawned several movies as well as a new Amazon television show, which we really
highly
like.
recommend. Highly recommend Rings of Power. J.R.R. Tolkien was a true master of his art. He made a whole language for this one book series, right?
Yes, he made the language Elvish as well as the language of the orcs, dwarves, and some of the Sindarans, which is another form of Elvish.
All right. Dad?
All right, my first is, and you're going to see again a trend among us, as so often happens here at Crossing Kin in the Garage. You're going to find that I lean towards a little bit 60s, 70s adventures books, maybe, and then Katy a little bit towards romance, fantasy, and Kristen, well, who knows? You'll have to see. My first book is to recommend is the first Dirk Pitt novel by Clive Cussler.
We talked a little bit about him in our last video.
Right. The movie Sahara is based off of a Clive Cussler novel. We like Sahara. It didn't do very well box office wise and has a little bit of a stigma attached to it. However, the book series is absolutely incredible. Pacific Vortex is the very first Dirk Pitt novel. Now, it wasn't published until after Dirk Pitt was introduced in the Mediterranean Caper. Mediterranean Caper came out in 1973, but Pacific Vortex was the original Dirk Pitt novel that didn't get published until 1983. It is a time capsule for those of us raised in the late 60s, early 70s of a 6'3" hero who is got military background and saves the damsel in distress and ultimately the world. Pacific Vortex by Clive Cussler. That's one of my picks.
All right. My first pick is The Con Job, based around the television show Leverage. This is one of 3 books that was published in conjunction with Leverage. It is written by Matt Forbeck and is awesome. It is set at a Comic-Con. The crew has to infiltrate a Comic-Con for reasons that I will not spoil. And guys, there's a Stan Lee cameo. So nerds unite. There is a Stan Lee cameo. I cannot express enough how much reading this book is just like watching the show. So if you are a fan of Leverage, read this book. It is called The Con Job. It is one of 3. All 3 are great. But this one is definitely my favorite. But we will talk more about Leverage in a soon coming video. So stay tuned to Crossing Kin for that.
Tag suspension done.
Kate?
My next one would probably be D. Henderson's Dangers in the Shadows. Now, this is the prequel, if you are a D. Henderson fan, to the O'Malley series. The reason I recommend this book, this is, the girl is named Sarah Walsh. She is in basically witness protection in some cases, but also in very much FBI security protection. because the guy who kidnapped her and her sister back when they were kids is still out there and hunting her. So, not to spoil the whole thing, this is a Christian romance mystery book. Thank you. For me, I love those type things. I love the cop shows, so this falls right into my genre. So, if you love romance, but you love mysteries, and you love cop dramas, this is a book you really need to read.
And you don't necessarily like the romance novels with Fabio on the cover.
No, this is not that kind of book.
Not that kind of book.
No. But Danger in the Shadows is the prequel to the O'Malley series.
Awesome.
Which is 7 books. So that would be 8 books altogether.
And she recommends every single one of them.
Yes.
You could take all 8 books and 3/4 of your year is done.
Yep.
My next book is the granddaddy of them all. It started everything.
Oh boy.
Bond.
Oh.
James Bond.
The
The book is Casino Royale, and if you love James Bond, we are fans of the novels. Go back and read the books. You can find these books very inexpensively. The author's name is Ian Fleming, who did have some military MI6-ish type background. And then read Casino Royale. It is the very first of the James Bond novels. It is the first of 11 that Ian Fleming wrote, and those books are continuing on today. John Gardner picked it up from Ian Fleming, and I believe somebody else is pen writing it now. Most of these books have absolutely nothing to do with the films other than the original 11 Ian Fleming works. So go back and check out Casino Royale. It started it all. 2 movies, in fact, were made. One loosely off the premise of Casino Royale in 1967, starring David Niven, and it was more of a comedy. And then again, of course, in 2006, when Eon Productions relaunched the franchise with Daniel Craig as the titular hero, James Bond, in the movie Casino Royale. Good start off. We'll give you a Bond criticism at a later date. Be watching. Again, suspense.
All right, my next book is part of a franchise in a big, big way. My next book is The Order of the Phoenix from the Harry Potter. It is the 5th book in the 7, and I love this book. It is the longest book. I checked. It is the longest book in the J.K. Rowling Harry Potter franchise series, but it's the shortest movie. I have issues with the movie, but this book is great because it actually gets Harry going where I want him to go. He's out of the angsty teenager phase and is finally starting to be cool again to me. It gives me probably a villain I hate more than Voldemort in the franchise, that being Dolores Umbridge, the pink demon herself. But also, there's so much character growth from everybody, not just Harry. Ron and Hermione specifically go through a good bit of character growth. Also, it introduces my favorite Harry Potter character in Luna Lovegood. I love her with a passion. She is probably one of my favorite fiction characters of all time. If nothing else, she's in my top 10. And this was the book that introduced us to her, so this is the book that gets my recommendation. But I do recommend the whole series, especially if you are one of those that are into magic and wizards and all that jazz.
One of the things that you may be seeing here is that we highly recommend, if you have a fan favorite movie or series of movies, that you do a little bit of research and see if they were based off of books. Because so many incredibly good movies. Murder on the Orient Express, as an example. Hercule Poirot was a incredible literary detective far before he was a movie or television. Actually, PBS had a Hercule series. So go and find out. Does your favorite movie is it based off of a book? I think you'll be surprised at how many of them actually are.
Like Die Hard.
Sherlock Holmes.
And all of the James Bond films. most all the James Bond films.
All right, Kate, number 3.
Number 3 would be Sophie's Heart by Lori Wick. This is a book that is based in 1988. A young lady from Czechoslovakia comes to America and starts working in a restaurant. Isn't really happy there, but meets somebody at church who recommends she come and help this family as a housekeeper. This is totally a romance book. She learns how to trust God with what is going on, and she also helps this family heal from the death of the mother and wife. The reason I recommend this book is for those of you young ladies especially. If you're a young Christian, this book will help a little bit in learning how to trust God with what your future is for the rest of your life. In finding, in dating, in knowing how to act like a young Christian and not actually pushing yourself to be who you aren't.
Remind us who the author is?
Lori Wick.
Lori Wick, okay. Now, if you are a fan of history, I am. I love history. A lot of the books that you see behind us are either biographies or, in fact, some of them are textbooks from a couple of dear aunts who taught in one-room schoolhouses. I love history and I'm a fan of history. And I like it when authors will take actual events in history and then create an incredible, incredible universe, so to speak, around that. Such is the case with the book Back Bay by William Martin. It was published in 1979, and it's the start. It introduces the principal character of Peter Fallon. There are 5 other novels that are Peter Fallon novels by William Martin, and they all tend to be historical, fictional novels based in the Northeast, where a lot of American history really started. I can also recommend Cape Cod by William Martin and Annapolis, which, as you would imagine, is the history of the military academy based in Annapolis, Maryland. So, William Martin, start with Back Bay. It was the very first book that he produced. Historical fiction, interspersing enough non-fictional characters into it to make it, but it is a total fictional account of events that happened during that time. Highly recommend it. Back Bay by William Martin.
All right, so my third recommendation is another book from the middle of a franchise. It is The Silver Chair by C.S. Lewis. It is the 6th in the 7 Narnia books, and I don't know how to describe my feelings for this book. It is the book I was probably most looking forward to seeing the movie version of, and they've not done it. Netflix, get on it. You've had the rights for like 3 years now. Hurry up! The Narnia fans are waiting. But Silverchair, because it introduces kind of a character that is so close to my heart it hurts. Puddle Glove, Katy reads my mind. Puddle Glove, the Marshwiggle. I'm not going to tell you what that is. You have to go read the book for yourself. But he is probably the most honest, wonderful, beautiful character in the entirety of Narnia. I love him so much. But also I do appreciate the new character that is introduced in Jill, because unlike Susan and Lucy, she actually gets to be part of the action for the whole thing. They don't send her away to a party. They don't say, no, you stay put. She's not off on her own. She and Eustace and Puddleglum are in this together through the whole thing. Also, even though I don't like snakes, we get to fight a big snake at one point in this movie. This is probably the biggest action scene that we have in the entire Narnia thing since the sea monster in Voyage of the Dawn Treader. So yeah, I recommend the whole series. I'm actually reading through it with my nephew right now. But I recommend the whole series, but Silverchair is probably the one I recommend the highest.
Now our last round. Katie's going to start us off. The last 3 books in the 12 that we recommend for you to read this year.
All right, my last book is called Hood. if you haven't guessed, it is about Robin Hood, but with a different spin on it. Stephen R. Lawhead, who is based out of Oxford, the new spin is this is Robin Hood in Wales. Now, this is more of a Celtic spin, so the names are all different. But with the character of Friar Tuck, which is a different name, and I'm not going to pronounce it because I will probably sound offensive.
We're sorry, Wales. We cannot pronounce your words.
With Friar Tuck in there, and with someone who is basically a bard character, they put enough of, I guess it's Catholicism in it, that it brings a little more of my Christian need in reading books, along with enough of the legend of Robin Hood that I love. And it's just a different spin of it. I love this. It's adventure. It kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time I was reading it. There were times that if a character disappeared, I was really sad and I got emotional, which I don't get emotional very easily in books. But I can recommend this book. It's called Hood by Stephen R. Lawhead.
It's the first of...
It's the first of 3 books. It's Hood, then Scarlet, and then Tuck, which Will Scarlet is the second one from his perspective, and then from Tuck's perspective.
Awesome. Kristen, why don't you go ahead on your last choice?
All right, my final recommendation is Inkheart by Cornelia Funk. I think that's how you say it. She is a German author, so if I mispronounced her last name, I apologize. This is a book for book lovers. That is probably the best way to describe it. This is a book for book lovers. At the beginning of every single chapter, there's a little excerpt from another book, which just made me want to read these other books that she put the excerpts from. Like, it's how I discovered Princess Bride was a book. It's how I discovered that The Sword and the Stone that Disney made was not just something Disney made. It was an actual book. So, thank you, Inkheart, for letting me know about all these other books. Just read Inkheart and you'll get a whole list of book recommendations. But it's set in such a fantastical world. It is the first in a trilogy. But I think Cornelia is actually actively working on other works in the series. There was something about it in 2020 that said she was starting work on possibly a few more adventures with our characters from Inkheart. But it spawned a movie that I love dearly, starring Brendan Fraser and Paul Bettany and Andy Serkis.
Helen Mirren.
And Helen Mirren. Yes, that was actually the first Helen Mirren movie we ever saw.
Mm-hmm.
Love her. But here's the thing. I've heard some people say it's not a great adaptation. It is. It's a good adaptation. Stuff is cut and it ends differently because the producers of the film, New Line, I don't think they intended to make the whole trilogy. I think they just wanted a one and done fantasy film. So they end the movie on a happy note, which, the whole series kind of does end there. So it's fine. I'm not mad about it. And yeah, it's a great book, it's a great series, and it has a great movie attached to it. If you are a fan of Brendan Fraser and want to help out with his Renaissance, as we're calling it, check out Inkheart, because hey, it's one of his movies too, and it's really, really good. So yes, Inkheart by Cornelia Funk is
good film adaptation, very enjoyable. Hour and a half to 2 hours, well worth your time.
It just came out in a terrible time. It was 2008, the year of The Dark Knight and Iron Man.
It had a great deal of competition. So, my final book is going to be something that I recommend that you start in January and read through the entire year. My final recommendation is the Bible. It is God's Word to man. It is broken up into 2 books, or 2 Testaments, the Old and the New. It has a total of 66 books, 39 in the Old Testament, 27 in the New. The beautiful thing about the Bible is that it has everything that we've talked about so far in all of these books that we love. There's adventure, there's historical narrative, there's poetry, there's apocalyptic literature. There is all kinds of literature found in the Bible. I would recommend going to the YouVersion app available on your iPhone or on your iPad and begin one of its year-long plans. If you need help, please leave comments below and we'll be happy to get you set up on any one of those 365-day reading plans for the Bible. Reading the Bible through will change your life. Regardless of where your belief system may be, read through the Bible. It was written 6,000 BC, approximately began 6,000 BC in the book of Genesis. It ends with apocalyptic literature and Revelation. It has everything that book lovers love. I promise you, you will not be disappointed if you take a year and read through the Bible. And then continue the next year, because the things that you read in year one, the things you read in year two will be different than the things you read in year one. And then the things in year three will be different than the previous two. Every time I've read through the Bible, there is something different that speaks to my life at that stage of my life that I need at that moment. So please, consider. Find a translation that you can read and understand. My favorite two, personally, are the New American Standard Bible and the English Standard Version of the Bible. Please, if you want the poetic literature to come to life, read the King James Version. That is for those of you who are fans of William Shakespeare, that writing will just leap off the page for you. However, I can also recommend the several other Christian Standard Bible. The CSB is a fantastic version. The most important thing is that you find a Bible that you can read whereby you're not distracted by trying to understand the reading. Read the Bible. 365 days, 66 books. It winds up to be about 3 chapters a day. And if you'd like other resources as you go through the Bible, please, again, message us in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.
That's it, guys. 12 books that we highly recommend y'all check out. Special thanks to Katie for being part of our channel today.
Thanks, guys.
You are always welcome back in the Crossing King Garage. Please be sure to like, share,
Ring that notification bell.
and subscribe. Also, if you guys want to suggest a video, we always want to hear from you. So please, either leave comments down in the comment section below or email us at crosskin6496@gmail.com. We will link that in the description below. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. And until next time, I'm Kristen.
I'm Randy.
I'm Katie.
And we will see you again, hopefully, in 2 weeks. Bye!